Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. A big thank to the Civil Aviation Authority to organize this very nice event. We are very proud that in the next months we will be the first region in the world to have a full comprehensive regulation for drones. You are aware that the regulation was adopted in July of 2019. And I will show in my presentation that starting from 1st of July of this year, the regulation will become applicable. And this was a very important effort that was led by EASA and by the European Commission, but with the big support of all the aviation agency, and also a big thank to the Croatian Aviation Agency that participated in the development and gave a big contribution. And we were able to develop a regulation that is quite flexible. So you will see in my presentation that we allow to have some not very complex operations, also professional, for which you don't need even to have an authorization in order to start your operation. And in other cases, if the operation is a bit more complex, a little bit more risky, we provide a tool that allow the operator to shape your operation. So you will be the one that identify how is the best way to conduct the operation that better fits your need, to propose some mitigation, ask to your NAA to verify that your proposal is safe enough, and then your NAA will give you the authorization. So what I encourage you now to make use as much as possible of this very powerful tool and also of the competency of your aviation authority to start to think what is the best way for you to conduct operation that fits your business requirements, and start to propose to your NAA methodology, so or kind of operations. And then we can also build up on the experience that you have to not only improve the regulation, but also to have additional layer of simplification of the regulations. So I will show you now, during my presentation, all elements of the different categories. And you will see that my presentation is quite detailed, so I hope that I will be able to answer to most of your concern and of your doubts. But then we will have at the end of the presentation, at the end of each section, time for questions. So and I will be able to. I will try to answer to all questions that you have. So before starting, I just want to give information on EASA. I don't know how many of you are aware of what is EASA. EASA is the European Union Aviation Safety Agency and was established in 2002 in Cologne. The objective of the agency is to make sure that all flights in Europe are safe. So this means that we assess all projects of aircraft that are designed in Europe. We assess all aircraft that are produced in Europe, and we coordinate with all the states, with the Civil Aviation Authority, the operations that are conducted in Europe to make sure that they reach the minimum level of safety. We propose regulations in all aviation fields to the European Commission, and then the European Commission, through their process, they approve the regulations. So in the EASA, we have more or less around 800 people, mostly engineers or people that are dealing with aviation operations that work with a very passionate way into the aviation world. And since 17 years, the EASA was able to grow up and now to become one of the leaders in the world as setting standards for aviation safety. And since you will see that since last year, EASA in Europe become competent also on the drones regulation. So this is why we started to develop the regulation at European level. So in my presentation, I will maybe it's not working. Okay. So in my presentation, I will start with definition and introduction. Then we will focus on the open category, the specific category. Then I will give you some information on the use space, and at the end, just to give you some highlight what is the plan for the future for what we call the certified category. And at the end of each session, there will be a space for questions from you. So let's start from definitions. In the regulations, you never will hear the term drones. So drones is a terminology that is more used for the public to identify in a safe, in a quick and simple way what are aircraft that are unmanned. What in the regulation we always talk about UAS, Unmanned Aircraft Systems. So this means all kind of aircraft that are operated without a pilot on board. Now, under the definition of UAS, we can have both aircraft where the pilot is remotely controlling it, or where there is no pilot, for which the system is fully autonomous. And it's something that we still don't have yet, but it's something that the regulation already start to accept. So, and you will see that we don't prevent to have this kind of aircraft, maybe in the next future. Then, model aircraft, they are also unmanned aircraft system. So they are aircraft piloted remotely. So there is no difference between the normal drones or what we are used to consider and the model aircraft. So I will have some specific slide to tell you how model aircraft are accommodated into the regulation. Since we don't want to prevent the activity of model aircraft like they are being conducted in the last decades in Europe, and we saw that they were conducted in a safely manner, we decided to have some simplification for them, and I will show you. But in general, model aircraft are also drones. UAS operator. UAS operator is an important figure. The UAS operator is the manager of, we can be a company that employs a number of pilots. Maybe the UAS operator is not the pilot. It's like if we want to have a parallel in the manned aviation, it's like the Croatia Airlines, so the CEO is not a pilot, and he has some pilots that are working for him. In some simple cases, the operator may also be the pilot. So if I buy my drone and I want to do either for leisure or from a very small professional operation, I can be the operator and the pilots. But in general, there are two different figures, the operators and the pilots, and they have two different kind of responsibilities. Then the remote pilot is instead the person that physically is managing the remote pilot station and controlling directly the aircraft. And there are some specific requirements and competence that are mandated to the remote pilot. And lastly is the concept of the involved person. It's important to understand these figures, this concept that we introduce in the regulation. The difference between manned aviation and unmanned aviation is that so far we organize the safety around the fact that I have a pilot on board, normally on a normal aircraft, and if I protect the life of the pilot on board, make sure that the aircraft does not crash, then I'm also protecting the people that are in the area where the aircraft is operating. Now, you know that with drones we have a different concept because we don't have anyone, so even if the aircraft crashes in an area where there is nowhere, yeah, maybe a problem from a business point of view. So you want to make sure that you don't lose your aircraft. But from a safety point of view, we can accept that the price of the aircraft is lower because we don't ask for a certification of the aircraft because maybe it's operated in an area where even if it's crashed, it's still safe. So we introduced the concept of involved persons. Who are involved persons? Involved persons are persons that accept to be part of the operation, and they accept to be overflown during an operation, and they are made aware by the operator of all the emergency procedures. So they know that they need to always check, see where is the aircraft, and be ready that in case there is an accident, in case the pilot lose control of the drone, they will be able to go in a safe place in order to make sure that they are not hit. So we allow that all the presentation that I will show you, we allow that some kind of operation, even if the level of verification of the safety of the drone is very low, we allow to do this operation in an area where people that is involved are present. So we differentiate between people that is involved and people that is uninvolved. So if I want to fly with my son in an area with my small drone, and I make sure that my son is aware of all these safety precautions, I can do it without any kind additional safety elements. If instead I want to fly in a park where there are other people that has not been involved, they did not accept to be part of the operation, then I cannot overfly them unless the drone is very small, as you will see later. So the uninvolved people are people that needs to be protected, so for which I don't need to put them in dangers. Involved people are people instead that accepted to be part of the operation, and they know what to do in case of an accident. Okay? So, legal basis. So why we started this activity? There is a regulation that is called what is called the EASA Basic Regulation. Is the number 1139/2018, and this regulation defines the competency between Europe and the member states in the aviation world. So define what are the elements that are where the nations are in charge, and what are the elements for which Europe are in charge. Until 2018, so before this regulation, drones below 150 kilograms were under the competence of the member states. So the Europe and the EASA has only competence for the large drone. With this regulation, instead, the competency of Europe has been extended to all kinds of drones. So this means that now we can regulate all drones independently of what is their weight. So this is why we developed this regulation. And also, the member state, the basic regulation said that EASA carry out on behalf of the member states all function and task of the state of design. So this means that all the certification, so the verification of technical requirements of drones needs to be performed by EASA. Or you will see in the presentation, in some cases where the risk is very small, we allow another way. It is the C marking, for which I will give you some additional information. This regulation says that the competency of Europe is only for civil aircraft, so civil drones. It's not for what we call the state aircraft, so police, firefighter, search and rescue, the military. So they are excluded. However, each member state can decide that also this operation can be put under the European regulation. So they can follow the European regulation, but this is a explicit request that needs to come from each state. So how did we develop this regulation? We decided to have a different approach compared to the Unmanned, because as I told you before, we start from the fact that not all crash may be something that is catastrophic. So we decided to have a regulation that is performance-based, risk-based, and everything is around what is the operation. So according to how you want to operate, then this will drive the risk of the operation. So we identify three main categories, what we call open, specific, and certified. So open category are the less risky operation. So normally with a drone not very big, up to 25 kilos, where we identify some very strict operational limitation. And if you follow this operational limitation, you don't need to ask for any kind of approval to the competent authority. So you can buy your drone, register yourself, you will see in the next slides, and then start operating without asking any kind of permission. You will see that there are some zones where there will be some limitation, but now I will give you then some information later. But so the important is that also some professional activities can be done in this category. We don't differentiate between professional and leisure, because if I'm in a park and I'm doing something with my son and a drone is overflying my head, personally, I don't care if the drone is a professional operation or is a leisure operation. I want to be safe at the same way. So this is why we don't differentiate. All operator needs to issue the same kind of safety to protect the people that are overflown. Then, if instead you want to do an operation that is a little bit more complicated compared to what is in the open category, then we classify the operation specific category. And in this case, you need to conduct a risk assessment. You need to ask for an authorization to the member state. You need to propose the mitigation measures, and then the NAA will approve your authorization. And you will see that we have some simplification here. When instead the level of risk is very high, so it's something that is comparable to what we have today with manned aviation. So we will see that we are talking about future activity with passengers on board, so no pilot, but passengers, or some other very risky operation. Then we classify this operation certified. Certified means that now you need to follow more or less rules that are very similar to the manned aviation. You need to have the certification of the drone, so the type certificate according to the Part 21. You may be aware this Part 21 is the regulation that we have for the certification of normal aircraft. You need to have the approval of the operator and the license of the pilot. Now here you may have some autonomous operation, so little by little the competence of the pilot will always be reduced, and we will reach a level in which no pilot will be required. So the aircraft will be fully autonomous. So the regulation that we published is 2019-945 and 947. I will tell you later why we have two regulations. They are covering only the open and specific, category. So because these are what we mostly have today in Europe. For the certified category, that is a little bit more complex, we are working on it, and we plan to have an MPA later this year, or maybe most probably mid of next year. So my presentation, at least this part in the morning, will cover only the open and specific. I will give you some very quick information on what is the plan for the certified, and this will be this afternoon. So you see that we had two regulations. Why two pieces of regulation, not one? The basic regulation that I showed you before, that identify the difference of competency between Europe and the member states, identify also the process that need to be used in order to approve a regulation. And they identify two different processes. One they call delegated acts process, and the second one implementing act process. The first one gives more power to the Parliament, to the European Parliament, that can put a veto. The second process gives more power to the member state that needs to instead to vote on the regulation. So it's just a technicality on how to approve the regulation. From a technical point of view, there is no difference. So we were forced to split the regulation in two pieces in order to comply with this technicality on which kind of involvement we need to give to the European Parliament or to the member states. And so, for your point of view, there is really no big importance of identifying why we use one process or the other process. So in the follow part of my presentation, I will not mention if what I'm talking about is in one regulation or in the other one. So at the end, it's exactly the same. So, but when you are going to, if you want to read all the provision, you need to make aware that all the requirements that are related to the design, the technical requirements on drones, so all the function that needs to be ensured by the manufacturer, and also all the elements for allowed three-country operation are in the regulation 945/2019 that we call Delegated Act. This regulation already was adopted in 1st of July and became already applicable from 1st of July. This means that a manufacturer may already put on the market today, or starting 1 year, almost 6 months ago, already can put on the market drones that are complying with the new regulation. The second piece is what we call Implementing Act, is Regulation 947/2019. And here you will find all the operational requirements and the requirements for registration. So if you want to know how you can conduct an operation in the open category, here you will find the operational restriction, the pilot competency is in the Implementing Act. If you want to know what are the functions that needs to be on board of the drones to be operating in the open category, you need to check in the Delegated Act. Yeah, this is a little bit unfortunate, but at the end, I think we found a way to make it work quite good. So the Implementing Act was also adopted in July and entered into force in July, but we gave 1 year time to all member states and the operator to get prepared for the new regulation. And starting from 1st of July of this year, the regulation will be applicable. And you will see in my slide that we have some transitional measures, so the full applicability will be in 2022. And in order to support the implementation of the regulation, we published also what we call Acceptable Means of Compliance, AMC, or guidance material. They are typical documents that EASA publish for all the regulations that are in support to the operator, in support to the NAA, to understand how they can apply the regulation, provide some methodology. So if they follow what is written in this AMC, this can be one possible way to comply with the provision in the regulations. And then the guidance material, all explanation, definitions, so everything that helps you to better understand what has been written in a, you know that the regulation is very legal, so we have sometime a language that needs to be interpreted because it's needs to be very essential. But then this document is more helpful for you to better understand what is the meaning behind all provisions. So I encourage you to read this document. And I think that this presentation will be made available, and there are links on this page where you can open the different documents, and they are all published on the EASA website. So the most important thing is that starting from 1st of July 2020, the national regulation will cease to be applicable. So this regulation does not need to be approved by the national parliament. They are directly applicable. So all national regulation will be superseded by this regulation. So what I will tell you now will be fully applicable from 1st of July 2020. The first element is the registration of the UAS operator. And I want to highlight UAS operator, not registration of the drone. So the regulation mandates only the registration of the operator. If I buy, for the first time, a drone, I register myself. I will show you how. The second time I buy a second drone, I don't need to do anything. I need to introduce some elements in the drone, I will show you, but I don't need to be registered after I buy the second drone or the third and so on. The registration will be done to your member state, so to your Croatian Civil Aviation Authority, and we expect that will be on a website, so something that will be quite easy. And I know that the Croatian Aviation Authority already have a system in place, so at the end it will be not a big difference to compare to what will be mandated from the 1st of July. And once you are registered in one member state, this registration will valid all over the other member states in Europe. And in general, whatever I tell you now, whenever you have a competency from the pilot recognized in Croatia, whenever you have an authorization that is provided here in Croatia, whenever you have a certificate recognized here in Croatia, you can use the certificate all over Europe without the need to be recognized by the other member states. So, when you need to register yourself? In the open category, whenever you operate a drone with a maximum takeoff mass more than 250 grams. So, these requirements is more for, actually for the security. So, whenever you have a drone that can have a payload quite significant, so more than 50 grams, so you need to register yourself. But even if the drone is lighter than 150 grams, but is equipped with a sensor able to capture personal data, I mean a camera, microphone, whatever, then you need also to register yourself. And this is more for privacy. Then the third condition is drones that are very fast. So technically, in the regulation says drones that has a speed such that in case of impact of a drone with a person, they will transfer a high energy. We have a limit of 80 joules. So in this case, the drones will really hurt people. So just to give you an idea, for a drone not 150 grams, we are talking about a speed of more than 130 kilometers per hour. So you can understand that the vast majority of drones require the registration of the operator in the open category. In the specific category, all operators need to register, independent of what kind of drones they are operating. Now, there are some cases in which the drone needs to be registered. When? Only when the drone itself required to have a certificate of airworthiness. So we mean that the risk of the operation is so high for which such that the only way to conduct the operation is that you need to go to EASA, ask for a certificate, and then you have a certificate of airworthiness. And so in that case, you need to register your aircraft. And you will register using the same approach you have today for manned aircraft. So for sure, this is not applicable for the open category. You will see in my presentation that maybe in some cases applicable in the specific category, but only when the risk of the operation in the specific category is very high. So when you register yourself, this information will be stored in the national database of your NAA. And as I told you, this registration will be recognized all over Europe. This means that if I'm flying with my drone registered in Croatia and I'm flying in France, and the police want to check if I'm legal or not, they need to be able to access to the database and identify who I am. So we are building a system that will enable the interoperability and real-time share of information between databases. So the police friends needs to access to the friends database, upload the information on my registration, and then retrieve from the database all the information on who I am, if I'm legal, if I'm registered, and if I'm legal or not. So this will be done connecting the French database, in this case, through the European database. And this will cover all US operators and all drones that are certified. So how physically will work? How the police will be able to identify who I am? When you register yourself, you will receive a drone registration number. That will be a string that you will are required to upload into your drones. When drone compliance with the regulation will be put on the market, they will have a function that is called electronic identification. This function will broadcast information through Wi-Fi, through Bluetooth, so through a standard that we are now developing through SD-STAN. And so the first thing you need to do is you buy your drone, you register yourself, unless you are already registered because you already bought other drones. So you upload this number on your drone. So when you buy the second drone, you already had the number that you received from the registration the first time, and you upload the same number to the second drone, to the third drone, and so on. Because at the end, we are interested to identify who is the person responsible when there is some illegal act performed by that drone. So we don't care if it's drone Dirubo number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. It's important that we know who is the person. So the same number may be uploaded to two different drones. So the drone identification that will be on board of each drone will broadcast which kind of information. This operator registration number that I just mentioned, but also a unique serial number that the manufacturer will assign to all drones. So this means that we are still be able then to identify single drones. Now it's not very much needed in the open category, but tomorrow in the future in the specific category, and when the use space or when we need to have a traffic management system on drone, this information of a single drone will be important. Then the remote pilot position, or if it's not available, at least the takeoff position of the drone. So trying to give the possibility to the police to locate where is the pilot, the current position of the drone, height, timestamp, direction, and speed of the drone. This information should be detected using a normal smartphone, because it's not only for the police, but also for normal citizens. If I see a drone that is spying me in front of the window, I need to be able to detect this number, go to the police and tell them, drone number XYZ was here and was at this moment was not supposed to be here. So I don't know who is the owner of the drone, I just have the operator number. Then the police will be able to access the database and identify if it was legal or not to be there, and then in case can take action. So the important that this application should be accessible to all persons. And then this registration number needs to be also added physically on the drone. I need to make sure that with a sticker this number is there, so if there is a crash in a place, I can still identify who was the owner of the drone. The member state has the possibility to identify area that needs to be protected for whatever reason. Not only for safety, but also for security, for privacy. For example, they can reduce the number of drones over a prison, or that they can completely close areas because they want to protect maybe the parliament, they want to protect a regional park. So for whatever reason, they can identify area where drones are forbidden, or where drones, they need to have a special authorization to enter there. And then they will identify you the procedures in order to have the authorization. For example, talking about the area where there is a prison, maybe almost all flight over a prison will be forbidden, but as a prison authority, I may use maybe a drone to clean the windows of my prison. So I may have a contract with a drone company and give them the authorization to enter this area just to perform this work. So there will be written who is the person that is, or the entity that may give this authorization. And the member state needs to publish on their website maps identifying all this area where operation can be conducted, where operations are forbidden, how to receive the authorization in some areas. And hopefully there will be also apps, like now we have almost in all countries, that give this information. And on the drone, another technical requirements will be the geo-awareness system. So there will be a system that will allow the operator to upload the maps that is provided by the member state. And when the drone is approaching an area that is forbidden, then the drone will remind the remote pilot that is entering this area. And then it will be the responsibility of the remote pilot to be aware and then stop the operation. Or maybe if he has an authorization, then he can continue. But at this stage, we want to make sure that the pilot is fully aware that it is completely responsible of the operation. In addition to the area where operations are restricted, in the green box there, you can see area we call aeromodel zones, where the operation of drones can be extended. So what do we mean? We know that today there are especially area for aeromodel where aircraft can fly without authorization up to 1,000 meters with very heavy drones without any kind of competency. So, we want to give the flexibility to the member state to identify this kind of area where all the requirements in the open category are reduced. And so this area will be published also for manned aviation, and they will be considered a sort of dangerous area for manned aviation. But everybody will be aware that operation there can be safely conducted with a much wider spectrum compared to the open category. This will be very useful, especially for model aircraft. But actually, everybody having a drone can go there and fly in that way. Okay, so these are the general principles that are around the regulation. Now I will go more in detail on what are the requirements on the open category. So in principle, you will see in my presentation that we want to be as performance-based possible, removing very strict threshold in terms of weight in general. So we try to shape the open category in a way that will allow some kind of operation to the operator, both for leisure and for professional, but still making sure that the operation is safe. And we try to use the three elements that we had. So the technical requirements, the operational limitation, and the pilot competency to use in such a way that they are balanced. So we shape the open category in general as a category where the operations are always in visual line of sight. So this means that the operator is always to, in this case the pilot, sorry, it's always to make sure that he sees the drone and is responsible to avoid that the drone collide with another object in the sky or also another or building or over person. So is his responsibility, and he always needs to see the aircraft and be able to intervene. So this means that we never allow autonomous operation in the open category. What do I mean autonomous operation? Autonomous operation are operations for which the aircraft will do completely the operation by itself, and there is no way that the pilot can intervene during flight. And it's different from automatic operation. Automatic operation are operations that are pre-programmed by the pilot. So the pilot will define the path that the aircraft will do during flight, but at any time, the pilot will still have the remote control and can interrupt the flight and take control if there is an emergency or some strange behavior of the aircraft. So this kind of automatic operation are allowed in the open category. So the pilot is always be able to intervene. And then the height, always below 120 meters. Why this level? Because normal manned aircraft operation, in order to fly below 150 meters, they need to have a special authorization. So typically, the number of operations from manned aircraft below 150 meters are very limited. Now, we still can have some search and rescue operation, military operation, but in general, the vast majority are above 150. So we had the 30 meters of buffer, and so 120 meters is the limit for the open category. And in general, all weight of drones is below 250 kilograms. Here, even if we try to remove all kind of hard threshold, we kept this threshold only because it's an historical threshold since many years. Has been used in all the world, and also to be consistent with the other aviation authority in the world, the United States and also other. So we kept this one also for simplicity. The minimum age needs to be 16, but member state can decide to reduce up to 12. And then in that case, this reduction will only be valid in that member state. If the drone is classified toy means that in the box is written that it is complying with the toy directive, so it's very clearly defined, then there is no minimum age. Never carry dangerous goods in the open category, and never dropping material. Now, based on the size of the aircraft, we identified 3 subcategories, and we called A1, A2, and A3. And I have a specific slide to define these A1, A2, and A3. So how you can know when you buy a drone where you can fly, and how the technical requirements has been enforced. As I anticipated you before, the European regulation allow to verify technical requirements not only through EASA, to a type certificate, but also the CE marking. CE marking is the same process that we have on all consumer products like cell phone, computer, whatever is put on the market today in Europe. There are some market regulation that identify what are the requirements that enable this product to be safe put on the market. And when the manufacturer demonstrates that this product is compliant with it, they put this CE mark. So we decide to develop new kind of CE marking, and there will be this kind of symbol from C0, C1, C2, C3, C4, and for each symbol there are associated in the Delegated Act a number of technical requirements. So if a manufacturer wants to put on the market a drone marked C1, they need to go on the regulation, identify what are the requirements. They need to show that they are compliant with these requirements, and then they can put on the market this drone. When I go on the shop, I buy this drone, then I know that this is a C0, and I know what I can do, what I cannot do. And then I will show you what are these requirements. So the 3 categories are: the A1 is for very small drone, up to 900 grams, you will see, that for which the risk they pose to people in case of crash is very limited, because the energy that is related to this kind of drone is very low. So we allow to fly these drones over people in general. You can not only use the drones with the CE marking, but also drones that are privately built. We know that A lot of drones today are used just built by myself. So here we limit these drones up to under 50 grams. Then if you want to do operation with heavier drones, then you go in the category A2, where you can fly close to people, not directly over people. Then instead, if you want to use the very large drone, then you are in the category A3. This means outside of town, in an area where there is no uninvolved people. And here also you can use privately built drones up to 25 kilos. So let's see it a bit more in detail. So when I buy one drone, I will have in the box one of these documents. Is the consumer information. I think that now we are completely changing the structure, so also the format will be different from this one. We are now finalizing it. But you will have important information on this document. So first of all, we identify what kind of class of drones you just bought, what are the requirements that you need to follow, first registration, what kind of training you need to follow, and then do and don'ts. What you can do and what you cannot do with this kind of drone. And then there will be the link to the EASA website and to the National Authority website, where you can have all training, where you can register yourself, other promotional material. So we want to make sure that the operator simply identify what they can do, what they cannot do. So as soon as you see that kind of mark, C1, C2, C3, C4, then he knows what are his limitations. And let's see what are the limitations. So first of all, open category, subcategory A1. So if I buy a drone class C0, or if I'm using a privately built drone up to 25 grams, I can do operation in the urban environment. Yeah, I can fly here in the park. I can fly over people. Yeah, we were talking about a drone in case of crash, it will not injure very much. Now, in the guidance material, we ask to try to reduce as much as possible overfly over people, but in general, we can do, here we are talking about mostly toys. And so especially all toys will be below 250 grams will be classified as C0, and it will be difficult to say to my son, to my son, don't fly over people. The important is that you never fly over assembly of people. What is assembly of people? When there is a crowd, a group of people such that we are so packed, so close to each other, that if I see a drone that is coming over my head, I cannot move, because then there are people that are blocking me. So we are talking about concert, stadium, big event. Then you never want to have a drone flying there unless there is an authorization, unless you are in the specific category. Okay. So the only limitation actually that you have with this kind of drone is no fly over people, over assembly of people. And this up to drones 250 grams. If you have a drone classified as C1, and C1 are all drones up to 900 grams. Actually, the real requirement is drones that has an energy, in case of impact, that transfer energy up to 80 joules. So this is the way we want to move from a clear threshold to performance base. So the first requirement is that you need to show that your drones in case of crash, will transfer an energy less than 80 joules. Now, since this may be complicated especially for the small manufacturer, we say as an alternative, all drones below 900 grams may follow in the C1. But in general, here you can have also a drone of 1.5 kilos, I don't know, whatever the manufacturer may be able to build, adding some kind of frangibility, some kind of protection, something that will protect people in case of crash. So in this case, you can still operate it over in urban environment, but you need to avoid as much as possible to fly over people. So you need to focus your operation. You can be in a park, but in an area where there is no one. So no uninvolved people. So I don't care if there are people involved, so people that knows very well what they need to do in case of crash. But in general, if I'm in a park and I see that there is people there, here is no one, I need to do the operation in this part of the park. Then if someone will cross my area, it's not a problem, because still the danger of the drones in case of crash is very limited. Now, if instead I want to do some operation for which a drone of 900 gram is not suitable enough, then, for example, I am a photographer. I want to do some, I don't know, Wendig photography in the urban environment. I can use a drone C2. And in this case, C2 is drone up to 4 kilo, where there are some technical requirements that will reduce the level of injury in case of impact of a drone with a person. So in this case, I can fly in the town, but I can never overfly directly people. I need always to stay at a safe distance from people. Safe distance that is in general 30 meters, but if the drone has a specific function on the drone that is defined in the technical requirements that reduce the speed of the drone up to 3 meters per second, so this means that I'm capable to control it quite nicely. So I'm able to slowly approach people, but then stop at 5 meters. Then I can be up to 5 meters from people. So it is, I think, is a good tool to allow some good professional operation, because up 4 kilos is quite a good size of a drone, and still I can do in the urban environment. So not over people and not over assembly of people. So also in this case, never over stadium or something like that. When instead I want to do an operation with a drone heavier, in this case up to 25 kilos, then I need to do the operation outside of the town, so not in urban environment. I need to be in an area that is at least 150 meters from a residential, industrial, commercial area. And I need to make sure that in the range where I'm flying, in all range, there is no uninvolved people. And so if there is someone that is arriving, I need to then stop my operation. So this is, as you can see, the higher risk from sides of the aircraft, but then we compensate with very strict operational limitations. So at the end, all crashes should be safe. So here I can use drones classified C3 and C4. You will see C4 in the next slide. So the difference between the two is C3 is our normal drones that we almost know, already know. C4 is a specific marking for model aircrafts. And I will tell you later about the C4. So in both cases are drones up to 25 kilos, and also I can use in this category privately built drones up to 25 kilos. What is the training? So since we were able to enforce some technical requirements through the C marking, technical requirements that will simplify the operation of the drone, will make sure that I have some nice function like return home. That return home is mandatory for C1, C2, C3, or some other functionality that manage the risk of the lost link. And for C1 and C0, we have some specific requirements to reduce the injury level in case of impact with person. So this allowed us to reduce also the level of competency required for the remote pilot. So we know that in some nations today, there are mandatory, some very strict training also for the small operations. Here instead, for all operation in C0, so below 250 grams, we decide that you don't need to conduct any kind of training. You just need to be familiarized with manufacturing instructions. So read what is the operator instruction, the manufacturing instruction that is on the box, nothing else. If instead you have a drone C1, C3, or C4, then in addition to the manufacturing instruction, you need to complete an online training and then pass also the online test. So the online training will be provided by your NAA. And so there is no requirements to go in a kind of classroom. You just sit there. And this online training will go through all the elements of the regulation, all the risk, to make sure that you are aware of your responsibility. And then at the end, we levy very much on the fact that the pilot will be responsible of what he's doing. So the important that he knows what are the responsibility. At the end of the test, they will receive a proof of pilot training, like is here in the slide. And so this will have a number. This number will be linked to the database that will be in the member state. So this way, when you are flying in a park and the police want to check if you are legal or not, so you can show this proof. Now, that does not mean to be a paper proof. So we are trying to enforce some digital activity. So this will be maybe in a sort of something that you can retrieve from the database and show to him, or maybe once you give your number or your name, the police will be directly able to access the database and retrieve it. So the important is that this proof will be available, and then the police will be able to understand if you are competent to do this operation or not. For the CTU instead, CTU is what we consider the most risky operation, because you are flying with a large drone in town. So in addition to the online training that I showed you before, we ask also something more. So in the online training, there will be a section that will be dedicated on how the remote pilot can identify an area where you want to have your first flight. So independent of what are your category, will be safe if you familiarize with your drone by yourself. So you conduct a sort of self-practical test. So you identify this area that is safe, you start to do operation, and when you feel confident, then you can do the full operation with drones. So especially in the CTU, then it's mandatory that you conduct this self-practical training. So we don't ask you that you go to a school. You can do it by yourself. Also because today the drones, they have a lot of automatic feature and stabilization that really helps the pilot to reduce their involvement. So we don't think that a full training is needed. Then after you do this practical training, you need to go into an entity recognized by your competent authority. First of all, you declare that you conducted this practical training. And then you need to pass an additional training test, not training, but only an additional test in this entity. So this will be a face-to-face test. Okay? And then at the end, you will receive another document. This is the remote pilot certificate of competency, and this will show that you are able to do operation in A2. Now, what are the difference between a registration number versus the remote pilot training proof of completion? The registration number is a number associated with the operator. So it's like in a car is the car plate. So I may be the owner of the car, and then my wife can drive my car. So my wife, so the car plate is only linked to me. It's not linked to my wife. So there will be just one operator. So normally it's also the owner. Okay, and he will have this registration number. Then all people that wants to operate a drone needs to have a training, and then they will have this remote pilot training proof of competency. So it's like the driving license today. So you don't need to have a driving license. You don't need to have a car in order to have a driving license. So everybody may have a driving license, and few people may have drones. Okay. This training will be valid for 5 years, and So after 5 years, you need to redemonstrate that you still have the same competency. So this may be done up to defining, attending maybe a seminary or reconducting the same test. So the member state will organize through their entity that are recognized this refresher seminary where the remote pilot may attend it, and then this will allow to have the license or the competency renewed for additional 5 years. So what happens if you're flying in a hilly environment or over obstacles? So I told you that we have a technical requirements, operational requirements that says that you need to always to stay 120 meters from ground. And also the drones itself will have a functions that will stop physically the drone when it reach 120 meters. So we'll not be able to overcome this 120 meter limit. But what happens if I'm flying in a hilly environment like this? So we want to make sure that these operations also in this area are allowed. So this 120 meter actually needs to follow the orography of the terrain. So as you can see, you can fly within 120 meter according to the gray band in this slide. So this means that in some areas, in some cases, you can be also higher than 120 meter. The importance is that you will always take the aircraft in visual line of sight, and you keep 120 meter from the closest point of the Earth. Also because we know that the normally manned aircraft keep a distance of 150 meters from the higher obstacle that is in the area. So it's still safe if you are just following this kind of approach. What will happen if there is an obstacle higher than 120 meters, like in this case, a windmill? So the owner of the obstacle may ask someone to do some operational activity, maybe an inspection over this object. So do we need to have a special authorization to do this one? If the flight is limited up to 15 meters over the obstacle and is based only upon request from the owner of the obstacle, you are still allowed to do this operation in the open category without asking for any authorization. But important is that there will be a request by the owner. You don't need to go there just for fun to see the top of the roof of a very high building. If it's higher than 120 meters, then in this case it's forbidden. But if you can then prove that there was a contract or a specific request to do some job and that is requested by the owner, then you can do it. Because at the end, also here, we try to be pragmatic. Nobody will fly up to 15 meters of this kind of obstacle. So manned aircraft will stay much higher than this one. Model aircraft. So this is something that normally everybody is very much interested. We had a lot of collaboration with the European Model Aircraft Associations in order to develop something that could make sure that the operational model aircraft are conducted in the same way they are conducted today. So we don't want now to change completely their approach. So we ask our question initially. So what is the difference between a model and a drone? From an aircraft point of view, I don't see any difference. The difference is the people that are operating it. So if I'm operating a model, normally I'm a person that is passionate with aviation. I want to enjoy the flight. I want to do some kind of maneuver. So I don't like that the drone has any kind of stabilization, any kind of support, because I want to really be in charge of the aircraft. If instead I'm a drone operator, I don't care very much about the conducting of the flight. I'm more interested in the payload. There is a camera. I want to see what is the outcome of the camera. Maybe I like if the drone will be stable there with all kind of stabilization computer system that will stop it, and I can enjoy my video. So is in the way the two systems are operated. So if I'm using a model aircraft, normally I'm a person that I'm trained, I'm part of a model club association where there is a safety environment, where there is a community, and all of us try to help each other on how to better improve the performance, the safety. So in reality, the difference is in the safety environment that is made, it is around the model club association. And so we decide that the member state can give special authorization to model club association, deviating for all the requirements in the regulation, as long as the model aircraft association show that they have procedures such that the operation are safe. So they can fly up to 1,000 feet with drones or models that are more than 25 kilos. As long as they demonstrate to the competent authority that they are safe, they can give this authorization. The only thing that they cannot levy is the registration. So everybody needs to be registered. But the NAA can recognize the registration system of the model club. We know that normally you are always registered within the club. So if the club make sure that they collect the same information that are needed for the NAA, they can then transfer this information to the NAA. So if I'm registered in the model club, then this information is directly flowing within the NAA, and then I don't need to double register. But this is a very powerful tool. So that will allow all operations that are today in model club like they are today. Now, what happens if I don't want to be part of a club? Okay, so this is why we identify these aero model zones that I told you before, where I can do operation in a different way. So I can still enjoy my flight in this area with reduced requirements compared to the open category. And lastly, what happens if I don't have an area that is where I can do operation for aero model? Then option 3, you can operate in the subcategory 3. So we all know that I will never fly a model aircraft into a town. I'll always fly in an area where it's safe, so outside of town. So it's compatible with the A3 subcategory. But in the C3 list of requirements, we have some features that will impose the height limitation, or will impose the possibility of the aircraft maybe to return home in case of lost link. So we are imposing some kind of automatic feature that normally are not compatible with the model, because then we are really destroying the nature of model aircraft. And so we decided that we have a new class C4 for drones, where we don't have any technical requirements that are mandated except ones. The only requirement is that the aircraft does not need to have any automatic feature, unless some basic stabilization that are needed for some rotorcraft. But if you have some automatic feature on the model, this means that then you can have also the other one, the height limitation, and the other one that is the C3. So the only requirement is this one. You don't need to have any kind of automatic feature, and we just make sure that all the information provided by the manufacturer are there. So we impose more the structure of the manufacturer manual. So how this needs to be defined with all the information to be there, to make sure that the pilot knows how to operate safely the model. So this is also the third way, and but here you need to follow the A3 category, so not higher than 120 meter and up to 25 kilos. Let's now have a look to the responsibility of the US operator. So the operator is the person in charge of the operation itself. So he needs to develop operational procedures that are adapted to the type of operation risk involved. This means that if I am one single person company, I am both the operator and the pilot, we say adapted to the type of operation. So we specify in our IMC that we don't require you to have written operational procedures because I know what I need to do. If instead you employ more than one pilot, then you need to make sure that, since you are responsible as an operator, that your pilot knows what to do. So you can then discharge your responsibility to the remote pilot, giving them instruction what to do. So this is why in this case you need to develop operational procedures. Ensure that the efficient use of radio spectrum. We know that there are some specific duration on radio spectrum, and everything that emits needs to comply with them. And it's always important to identify in each operation who is the remote pilot, who is the person responsible, because then in case of accident, we need to identify all the kind of responsibility. So if you have more than one pilot, you need to know that from time A to B, pilot number X is the responsible person. And then make sure that all remote pilots and all other personnel that are in support of the operation have the required competency and information. So the pilots did the training that I just showed you, know how to conduct the operation, are familiar with the user manual, and so on. Then make sure that before all operation, all information regarding the zones, maps where you can fly, where you cannot fly, are updated in the geo-awareness system. And when they buy a drone with a C marking, they are responsible to verify that the drone has the declaration of conformity of that C marking. It's especially important when you buy a drone on internet that is coming from some strange part of the world. Also, in this case, you need to buy only drones that are with this kind of C marking. So then it will be your responsibility to make sure that this declaration is there. But it's the same one also when we buy a telephone or something else, nothing new. And then ensure that all involved persons present in the area of operation have been informed of the risk and have explicitly agreed to participate. So this is the operator responsibility to make sure that he is not overflying over uninvolved people unless he's in the CASEGBA category A1. The remote pilot, what kind of responsibility he has? So first of all, he needs to have the appropriate competency, so do the training that I showed before, and carry out a proof of competency in case is required by police for inspection. Before flight is the responsibility of the pilot to check what are the information related to the geographical zones, because even if the system will inform the remote pilot through the geo-awareness, but still the responsibility of the remote pilot to understand it will be just a second layer of information, the geo-awareness. But the first is his responsibility to know where he can fly, where he cannot fly. And make sure that the aircraft is in condition for safely complete the operation, so check the operation manual, that the battery is charged, all the elements are properly working, and not perform duties under the influence of psychoactive substances or alcohol. Okay, this is, I think, something very basic. And keep always the aircraft in visual line of sight. So this is one of the main elements. So we are reducing some technical requirements because we make sure that the pilot is always responsible to check if something is coming and always give precedence to another aircraft. You need to remind that manned aircraft are fast, big, drones are small, so it's very unlikely that a manned pilot will be able to see the drone when it's very far away. You only will be able to see when it's very close, when it's too late. So it's the responsibility of the remote pilot that he can see the big aircraft, most of the time also very noisy, that is arriving in an area where more or less is flying. And so much before the aircraft is approaching, you need to take some action, maybe land, go away, give always the precedence to this kind of aircraft. We know that we can enjoy with drones the first-person view operation. So we have Googles, and it's very nice to fly as a as a Superman. Now, we know we allow this kind of operation, but if I'm flying with goggles, I have a very small field of view. So I don't see if when I'm turning right, there is an aircraft, and then I'm crashing into the aircraft. So first-person view is not visual line of sight. It's completely different. So we allow to do this operation in first-person view, but we need to have someone else that scans the sky. So we will have the UAS observer. So these are people that needs to be close to me, that scan the sky, and will inform the remote pilot that there is an obstacle, so to immediately take action. So this person needs to be close to me. We are in the open category. We don't want to have a system of radio or communication. I say right, but it's my right, it's not your right. So then it will be a confusion. So open category means that there are very simple operations. So the pilot needs the observer needs to be alongside and to inform immediately the remote pilot, stop, turn right, turn left. So it should be very simple messages. So this observer is to be alongside with the remote pilot. And then we know that in cases there are some kind of accident or emergency situation, the police may close the area and may want to make sure that no one is flying over there. So we have a specific requirement that you need to avoid to overfly this kind of areas. Unless the police may ask you to borrow your drone or go maybe through your drone, go there and check something, and then in this case you can do it. But in general, always avoid, also because we expect that in some cases we can have some emergency rescue that is coming there, and then you can put down just them. Okay, now let's see the timeline. Now the timeline, you can see that is a little bit complex because this regulation consider different aspects, and so we don't want to have everything to mandate that everything is in place at the same time. So we decided to have something that is then split in time. So 1st of July last year, they entered into force, and 1st of July of this year will be applicable. So this means that until 1st of July of this year, national regulation will be still applicable, then they will be completely cancelled. So the European regulation from 1st of July will become applicable. So what do you need to do from the 1st of July? First of all, by then, all your operator shall register themselves according to the regulation. So now the NAA will identify if you need to have any delta information or if the registration that you already have today is in place. But by that date, we need to follow the regulation and need to receive the number that is provided according to what I showed you before. And also, if you are a certified drone, then needs to be registered the drone itself. For the first 2 years, since we know that even if today manufacturers already may put on the market drones complying with the CE marking, with the requirements of the regulation, it will take some time. Also because we are developing now with ASD STAN the standard in supporting of the CE marking, so it will take some time. So we know that these drones with the CE marking will be available maybe around 2022, not before. So for the first 2 years, we identified a limited open category. Now I will show you what does it mean. So you still can find the open category, but with a little bit different requirements. After 2022, when we expect that only drones that have a CE marking are put on the market such that they are operating the open category. So if you want to then if you buy drones for the open category, you need to have a CA marking. You can still buy a drones without the CE marking, then you need to use in the specific category. And then we'll see later what does it mean. But from 1st July 2022, all manufacturers, when they have a target to have their drone to be operating in the open category, need to have a CE marking. So let's see what is this limited open category. It's very much similar to what I explained to you before, but with different thresholds. So we need to remind that we don't have CE marking. We have the current drones that we have today. And also, we may not have the full competency training that I showed you before. So in these first 2 years, we may have something different. So if you have today a drone up to 500 grams, you may operate in subcategory A1 in the way I showed you for the C1. So this means that not directly over people, so you can be in urban environment, but you need to conduct most of your operation in an area where there is no one. So if there's people there, here is no one, I fly here. Okay, so this one you can do up with drones up to 500 grams, as they are today available, or you already have in your pocket. You can fly in category A2, so with a drone, in this case, up to 2 kilos, not 4, but 2 kilos, keeping a distance of 50 meters, at least 50 meters from people. Okay, so also in this case, in the urban environment, but you need to make sure that you never, in this case, never overfly over uninvolved people, and you keep this 50-meter distance. And then instead, if you have the larger drone, you can fly. A3 is already safe enough because you are still flying in an area where there is no one, so there will be no change compared to A3. The competency that is required will be defined by the member state. So if there will be already something that is equivalent to what I showed you before, perfect. So you can already start using this online training. Otherwise, they will continue to use the training that you have today in place in your member state, and they will identify which of these, or the current training is feasible with A1 or A3, so the equivalent of the online, and which one instead is equivalent to the A2, so this additional face-to-face test. Okay, so this will be up to them. Okay, so I told you that by 2022, all drones to be operated open category are put on the market with the C marking. So what will happen if I have a drone without a C marking? So I am on the 1st July 2022, I just bought a legacy drone, I need to throw it away? No. We allow that all drones that are without C marking and they are purchased before the date of 1st July 2022 may be operated forever. We don't have any kind of deadline, but they need to be operated in the category A1 or A3. If they are below 250 grams, they can be operated in A1. If they are above 250 grams and below 25 kilos, they can be operated in A3. So it's sort of as we consider in the privately built. Privately built we still can use in A1 or A3. So more or less, we compare the legacy to the privately built for this phase. Even if from a study we saw that the normal life of a drone is around between 6 months and 1 year. So more or less, quickly they will be replaced by more newer drones, also because the technology is evolving so fast, and you always want to have a newest drone with new features. Model clubs, they can continue to operate with whatever is the authorization or the approach that today there are in the state until 2022. So this regulation is not applicable to them until 2022. But from the 1st of July, they need to have received the authorization I told you before for the club and the association. So if they received the authorization, then they can fly according to it. If not, then they can only fly in the option 2 and option 3, as I showed you before. So the summary of the open category. So the regulation 947, so the regulation on the operation and registration, so will apply from mid-2020 and will be fully applicable by mid-2022. So the important, remember, the main elements is the registration of the operator and certified drones, but it will be your responsibility to make sure that you are registered by that date. And in general, in this category, the approach is buy your drone, register yourself, unless you are already registered because you already bought a drone before, do the training, okay, also in this case, unless you already had the training because you had bought a drone before, and then fly without any kind of other request for authorization, as long as you respect the limits that are in the published by the member state into the geographical zones. Okay, so this is the overview of the open category. Now, before discussing specific category, if you have any questions.
Okay, yes, Natalia, we have some questions. We have quite a few of them. Jel možemo staviti pitanja sad na screen, možda da vidimo svi? I možemo li ih sortirati prema lajkovima? Mislim, ovdje u ovoj aplikaciji možemo, gdje ja, koju ja imam, ne znam, imate vi istu.
Okay. This one, could you further explain the autonomous flying in open category? That's, for example, follow me or active track. Yeah. Okay, so the follow me mode, yeah, we have specific requirements for follow me mode. They are allowed for subcategory in subcategory A1, so only for the smaller drones. And we have technical requirements for the drones C0 and C1 that say that the manufacturer may include a follow me mode provision on the drone, but need to make sure that the pilot then is able to take control of the aircraft in case of what kind of emergency is. So when I talk about autonomous flight, means flight where I don't even have a remote pilot station, where the concept of the operation is such that there is a sort of artificial intelligence on the drone, and I just tell him go to A to B, and then he decided the best way to go to A to B. And the pilot cannot intervene. He can only start or stop the operation. So it's something that is not compatible with what is the normal activity today. So it's something that will be more in the future, and we know that there are several companies that actually are working on it. So it's not very much in the future. All other operations are automatic. So automatic means that there are some sort of predeterministic approach where the pilot loads the path of the aircraft, and the aircraft is always following this path. But there is always a remote pilot station such that the pilot can in any case overrun this kind of operation and take immediately control of it.
Okay, now we have questions sorted by likes, and the first one is: should already registered UAS operator register again after 1st of July 2020? This is kind of a specific for Croatia, I would say, and the answer to this question is yes, because current registration system does not collect all the required data by the new regulation. So you will be requested to register again. Ako možda niste razumjeli, dakle treba ćemo se svi ponovo registrirati, jer sadašnji sustav ne prikuplja sve podatke koje uredba obvezuje da se prikupljaju pri registraciji. Da, i treba će svakom operatoru dodijeliti ovaj broj koji sadašnji sustav ne dodjeljuje. Sad dobro, ovo drugo pitanje je praktički isto. And now, Natale, can you have a look on this one?
Yeah, we know that DJI is the main manufacturer in the world. I think they have more than 60% of the market share. We are aware, as a matter of fact, we are working with DJI. We are working with all main manufacturers, not only Chinese, also the European and the American manufacturer. And I need to say that DJI were very much helpful to develop this regulation. We are working with them to develop the standards that for the open category that I showed you before. So if they want to put drones in the European market, they need to comply with our regulation and need to put a CE marking, and they will do. So actually, they are very keen to push us to have this standard available as soon as possible in order to have their drone compliant with our regulation. At this moment, they are quite advanced. We know most of us, we have DJI drones. We know that they are quite advanced to implement some functions, even if they are not mandatory. And some of their drones, they already have not only the geo-awareness, they have even the geofencing. Means geofencing that there is an interaction between the maps and the fire control system, such that the aircraft is not able to enter these zones. The geofencing is something that we will mandate in the next years, especially when we'll have the use space. At this moment, we thought that it was premature to mandate for all geofencing, especially when we think about the fixed-wing drones, until we don't have a detect and avoid, something that will make sure that in case the fixed-wing drones is approaching an area that is forbidden, and maybe it turn right, if there is an obstacle on the right, then it will collide. So even if DJI is already advanced and already put in place this kind of geo-fencing system, at this moment also they identified maps based on the best knowledge that they have from member states. But I can assure that we are working with them, and they are willing, they are very keen, not willing, very active, to redesign the system and make sure that you will be able to upload the maps that are defined by your national authority. So the only one that will be able to identify if you can fly in air or not is not DJI, but is the NAA, and then DJI and all the other manufacturers will enforce what is defined by your NAA.
Okay, thank you, Natale. Now we have one question which is quite local one, so I will switch to Croatian.
Yep.
Imamo ovo pitanje o AMC portalu. As per open category rules, does that mean that AMC portal in Croatia will be obsolete? Odgovor je ne, zato što pretpostavljam da je pitanje postavila osoba koja je možda bila zbunjena onime što je Natale rekao, da u otvorenoj kategoriji neće trebati nikakvih odobrenja ishoditi. Natale je govorio o odobrenjima koja su predviđena europskom uredbom. Na razini Hrvatske postoje nekakva još lokalna odobrenja koja sa ovom uredbom neće nestati, to vam je jasno. Jer? Dakle, konkretno AMC portal vam daje odobrenja da letite u kontroliranom zračnom prostoru ili izvan kontroliranog zračnog prostora na visinama većim od 120 metara. Što će ostati sada. To je naš lokalni zahtjev i mislim skroz logičan. Jel? A između ostalog čak i europska uredba kaže da se prilikom operacije u otvorenoj kategoriji moraju poštovati lokalni postupci koordinacije upotrebe zračnog prostora. Tako da AMC portal ostaje i dalje ga koristimo kao takvog. Bojim se da i DGU isto tako ostaje. Da. Ok, idemo dalje. Meni je sljedeće pitanje na screenu. Ovo jesmo. How to upload registration number of operator on older drones from 2019?
Okay. Yep. Yeah, very good question, because we have the opportunity to introduce also another concept. So when you register yourself, you receive this number. So first of all, you need to put this number with a sticker on your drones, and this we can do on all drones. Then I told you that you need to upload this information into registration, into the drone identification system. We have in the technical requirements not only this function to be embedded in all drones from C1 to C3. We don't have for C4. We don't mandate these requirements for model, but we have a separate appendix to the regulation to define the requirements from an add-on, so a module that you can buy in the shop that will provide the electronic identification. This, we have some project in Europe that is called €5, 5 grams. I don't know if it will be so cheap and so light, but the concept is something that should be very cheap and very light, such that you can buy it and put on your drone. So this can be put on your model or on your legacy drone. And we don't think that it's always mandatory. So the member state will identify areas where you cannot fly if you don't have the electronic identification. But maybe if you are flying in the countryside where there is nowhere, there will be some areas where you don't even need to have this kind of electronic identification. So if you want to fly in an area where the identification is mandatory, you will buy this model. You will upload the registration information on this model, and the model will broadcast exactly the same level, same kind of information that I showed you before, and then the police will be able to identify who you are.
Okay, thank you very much. So there is, the previous question is basically the same one, but now the interesting one. What will be if 3 operators are responsible for one drone? How to enter ID string on drone for current operator? In other words, is such a situation envisaged that like 3 operators operate one drone?
So typically, if we do the parallel with cars, there is one owner of the car, and then there are different pilots that are piloting the car. Or in this case, there are different drivers that are driving the car. But even if when I rent a car, the rental company is the operator, is registered according to the rental company, and then there is a contract between me and the rental company, and then in case of problems, the rental company can show that I was misusing maybe the cars, and then I can discharge the responsibility. So we want to use the same approach also on drones. There will be always one single operator that will be responsible for the drone, not multiple operators. So, and in general, he's always the owner, and he has several pilots. Then in case, maybe tomorrow we can have a sort of a car sharing, drone sharing, like something like that, there will be a sort of contract, a sort of agreement that I signed with the company that will show that only for that period I'm using that drones, and I bear the responsibility of the operator. But the aircraft will still under the registration of the main company. So we want to use something that is similar to the current way we use cars.
Yes.
There is a possibility there are 3 owners of the one drone. 3 of us just decide to buy one drone. Who is the responsible? Who is the operator?
So I guess in this case it's a company. So if you are 3 owners,
We don't have a company, we're 3 private persons. Or
Well-
3 companies, doesn't matter. 3 companies, they also together buy one drone.
so what happens if there are 3 people that will buy, so maybe,
If I may.
yeah.
So anyway, no matter that 3 of you basically paid for the drone, towards competent authority, towards civil aviation agency, one of you have to be registered as an operator of a drone. And that person will be considered responsible as an operator. Now the other 2 may fly as pilots. And then, while flying, they will carry on their responsibilities as pilots. But you cannot have, obviously, you cannot have 3 operators operating one drone. It's not, well, one will have to be the operator, one person. Okay, let's continue. What about annual insurance, third-party insurance? Is it necessary for C2 class drones?
So for insurance, there is a specific regulation in the European system that is dealing with all with aircrafts, and actually it covers at this moment only drones actually in the regulation say models, we can consider drones, that are with a weight higher than 20 kilos. So this means that if you have a drone heavier than 20 kilos, you need to comply with the European regulation on insurance, and so you need to be insured based on European regulation. If instead you have a drone with a weight less than 20 kilos, so there is no European regulation that is forcing you to have insurance, but we know that almost all national regulations do it. And we think that it will be very important that you register yourself, that you have an insurance. So we decide that even if it's not so mandatory from European regulation, but there are for sure mandatory from national level, when you register yourself, you need to also add the number of the insurance that is cover third-party liability. So it's not a requirement from European regulation, but is something that will be mandated at the national level and will be anyway mandatory. So you need to specify that you have and which number is when you register yourself. So we expect that all of you will have this kind of insurance.
Correct. That's also our view. Let's move on. Please explain how new regulation affects the most common case, DJI Phantom 4, used privately for fun.
Okay, so I don't remember the weight of DJI
1.4, something
1.4.
like that.
Okay, so 1.4 means that most probably it will be classified C2, unless DJI they will show that in case of crash with another person, it will transfer an energy less than 80 joules. And then in this case, they can also classify as C1. So in general, Phantom 4 is a C2 when in 2022, so this means when the regulation will be fully in place. And you need to conduct first the online training, the online test, then have your self-practical training in an area where the operation is safe. When you feel confident, you then go to an entity recognized by the competent authority. You declare that you complied, you did this practical training, and then you need to conduct an additional test covering the specific area dealing with the additional risk posed by the C2. Once you have all this competency, then you can start operating in the urban environment. If the Phantom C4, Phantom 4 will have a slow speed mode, so means that you can fly up to 3 meters per second, then you can be closer to people as 5 meters. Otherwise, you need to keep 30 meters from people. So this is when the full regulation will be in place. For the first 2 years, since if you buy the Phantom 4 today, it doesn't have the C marking, then since it's below 2 kilos, you still can fly in the C2 open category. So this means that you can only fly up to 50 meters in this case from people. So we don't allow to be closer until we don't have the full mark C2.
Okay, another question on autonomous flight in open category. Does, for example, follow me or active track options on drones classified? To je odgovoreno. Dobro, ok, super, idemo dalje. Aren't you putting the police that is overflowed with work, another area where paranoid people can make 100 complaints daily, and by this the police is obligated by law to check every single complaint? And what about the pilot rights? We have a right to privacy as well as the uninvolved people.
Okay, yep. So we don't mandate who will be the enforcement authority. So it will be up to the member state to identify if it will be the police or will be someone else. Now, we know that every time someone is doing an operation, someone else can complain, someone can fly legally, so someone needs to check. It will be up to the member states to organize themselves. So if they believe that the police is the best authority in place to do this kind of verification, well, otherwise they can find something different. So this will be up to you.
Da, mislim, već uobičajen problem provedbe ovih propisa je upravo to. Europska komisija je na stajalištu da bi se otvorenom kategorijom trebala baviti policija. Iskreno mi nemamo ništa protiv, dapače. Naš problem je što nas je malo, zrakoplovnih inspektora je vrlo, vrlo malo i ne možemo biti posvuda. Policija ipak ima dovoljno, oni su na terenu, na svim su događanjima i imaju puno veći uvid u situaciju. Nije još kod nas odlučeno ko će se time baviti, tako da vidjet ćemo u kojem će to smjeru ići. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, I can tell about the rights, the pilot rights.
Go ahead.
Privacy. We are very much aware about the privacy rights for pilots. As a matter of fact, when private citizens detect the operator number, is not able to identify who is the person in charge of the operation. You just receive this number, then we can go to the police and ask for some kind of action. And only the police will be able to access the database and retrieve this information. So the data of the pilot or also the operator will be protected. It's the same way today I can see a car plate, but I don't know who is really the owner. And if I see a car misbehaving, I can tell the police the car plate number X was doing something, and then the police will verify. So no difference of what we are used today with cars. It depends what it was doing. I think that you can go to the police and if you have proofs. Yeah.
Ja mislim da policija kod nas ima obavezu postupati po svakoj prijavi. Sad, da li se to u stvarnosti događa ili ne, ali mislim da je tako.
Yeah, the difference here that I can have a snapshot of my app on my phone, and in a snapshot I can show that drones or registration number XYZ was in this position at this time. So, yeah, and I can go, yeah. It's just a snapshot on an app on your mobile phone, so it's very easy to have a snapshot of what. No. You can imagine. Yeah, we have an app. Yeah.
Okay. What if someone makes its own drone? How can you enforce these policies on self-made drones?
Yeah. So we don't have any technical requirements for privately built drones, because then we cannot check what did you do, how safe is your drone. This is why we have a little bit more limited operation that we allowed for the privately built. So I remind you that privately built, if below 250 grams, they can fly in the operation A1. So 250 grams is we can say a safe threshold, because so we have a study showing that drones start to be really dangerous in case of crash over people when they transfer this energy that now I already mentioned more than once, these 80 joules. And in the MPA that we published in 2017, we have an appendix showing how we trace these 80 joules to the 900 grams. So more or less 900 grams fits with this 18 joules. So 250 grams is a much lower energy threshold. So in case of crash with a person, will hurt a little bit, but should not kill a person. So this is why we allow also drones with any kind of technical requirements, so privately built up to 250 grams to fly over people in the urban environments. For the aviar drones, we try to be as safe as we can. So we are in the countryside, outside of urban environment, over an area where there is no uninvolved people. So in that case, even if there will be a crash of the drone, the impact should be very low. So we try to be pragmatic. we know that it's very common for several operators to build a drone also for fun. All of us, we like to try to invent something. But as long as I operate in an area where I don't pose risk to other person, I can do it.
Ok, obzirom da smo probili vrijeme, radit ćemo ovu sesiju pitanja i odgovora još 5 minuta, 6 do 11:15, pa ćemo dalje. Vratite mi molim vas pitanja, super. Where can I perform online training for C1 class UAS? Hrvatska agencija za civilno zrakoplovstvo radi na tom online treningu i taj online trening će biti raspoloživ čim bude gotov. Na našim stranicama svatko od vas će moći proći taj trening i polagati ispite upravo onako kako je uredba predvidjela. Where can we download this presentation? Biće na našoj stranici, a imate je i u aplikaciji, tako da kogod želi u aplikaciji je može pogledati, skinuti. What about drones coming from non-EU markets regarding C1, C2 marks? I believe that this is regulated by the 945, that such drones will not be able to enter the market.
So yeah, what will happen? So I can be an American tourist. I can come here and want to fly with my drone here in Europe. I need to follow the European regulation. So I need to register myself first of all, and where I need to register myself in the country where I want to do my first operation, and then I do follow exactly the same rule. And if my drone doesn't have a C marking, will be considered like a privately built drone. So what I said to you before. And I need to ask then, if I want to fly in the specific category, I need to ask the authorization, and the authorization will be asked to the competent authority of the nation where I had the first operation. So if the first time I do the operation in Croatia, I will be considered as a normal Croatian citizen from this point of view, and I will follow exactly the same rules as out here. But otherwise, I cannot buy a drone from abroad and use in the open category using what I showed you before, if it doesn't have a C marking. So if I buy on Alibaba, for example, maybe most of them will have a C marking, C1, C2, C3, so perfect, but if it's without it, will be, as I told you, responsibility of the operator to check that they have the declaration of conformity according to the C marking, and only after that, then I can fly in the C2, C3, as it was.
Okay, so will there be any required procedure to the pilot to determine the height above ground of the unmanned aircraft on uneven terrain, since unmanned aircraft usually determine the height by delta difference from takeoff point?
Yeah, so we expect that before flying, we have requirements that you need to check the area where you are flying, check geography. So it's up to the remote pilot to identify some kind of references. Now, the drones will have a function on board that will tell you what is the height at this moment regarding the takeoff point. So it will be up to the pilot to identify then where I'm flying. I know that the area where I'm flying now compared to takeoff point is higher or lower, so to make the delta evaluation. So in this first phase, we wanted to have technical requirements that are proportionate. We don't want to mandate very complex systems with maps, with geography, with the GPS that we're identifying the delta, because then this will become very expensive drones. So our idea is that let's try to have the minimum technical requirements that make the operation safe. Let's try to have the drones as cheap as we can, so then you can start to have operation. We give the responsibility on the remote pilot, and so the training will help the remote pilot to identify how they can see the height of their drones. But there will be a sort of preparation that the remote pilot need to do when they're flying in this hilly environment.
Ok, i zadnje pitanje prije pauze. You said that the CE markings will be implemented around 2022. Does this mean that if I buy a new drone next year, for example DJI Inspire for 3,000 euros, I won't be able to fly it in populated areas after 2022?
If the drone is about 250 grams, yeah. Otherwise, after 2022, all legacy drones that are below 250 grams can still be operated in populated environment. Yeah. Otherwise, yeah. After 2022, the privately built or legacy drones will be only operated in urban environment if it's below 250 grams, or otherwise in the countryside. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.